What's going on, everybody? If you read the headline up there, or the title, you know that I've misdiagnosed this truck. And is it my fault? I say yes, but no. And we'll see why. So my code, this is an ABS module, this C310. This is a hard fault. As soon as you turn the key on, clear the codes, whatever, this fault sets back immediately. And we're going to just kind of go through the little procedure and all data on how to diagnose this. We'll read over it real fast, and then I'll walk you through all the steps of doing it step by step, how Toyota wants you to diagnose this and how it led me to the wrong conclusion. All right, so we have our C1310, and the code description here says it's an open or short in the active brake booster solenoid circuit. Okay, that would be this little fella right down here, if it would focus. This plug right here. Okay. And it kind of gives you a little wiring diagram here. It's basically pins 3 and 4 off of that brake booster, and then pins 17 and 31 at the ABS module. And then in this inspection procedures, basically just saying if it's been replaced, you need to do the 0-point calibration. I tried that originally. It passes, but this code still sets immediately. So the procedure is to check the brake booster assembly. It is basically talking about pins 3 and 4. It wants you to ohm check them. And the spec is 1.1 to 1.7 ohms. And they want that always. So we will check that. Okay, and then the next thing is it wants you to check the wiring from the ABS to the brake booster solenoid. And it's basically just wanting you to check from end to end below 1 ohms, and then check it to body ground to make sure it's not shorted to ground at all on each wire. So we will go over that as well. And if everything is okay, replace the ABS module. What do you think I called? A bad ABS module. So let's go through everything. I'm just going to do everything from the ABS connector. I'm just going to unplug it, and we'll go from everything right there. Be quick and easy that way. No sense in unplugging the booster. I could, but it's not going to change anything. So let me get this unplugged, get my meter leads and stuff like that, and we'll go over everything. Okay, so by our ECM terminals, we need to be in 7 and 31. Oh, it's kind of hard to see down in there, but that's the ones we're in. As you can see, we're at 1.5 ohms. Right there within our spec of 1.1 to 1.7. So we've got a good circuit through the solenoid. Okay, the next check was to test it to ground. So I'm still in one of the terminals here, basically ohm checking it to battery ground, and we are OL. So yes, it wants you to check each one individually, but I mean, we know we have a complete circuit from one end to the other end. So even if I moved from one end to the other end, it would still be 0 or open loop, because if it was shorted to ground anywhere, it would still read on both sides. I would just see a 1.5 ohm difference in the resistance from one side to the other side as it's going through that circuit. So there we go. We've proved by ohm checking that the solenoid is within spec. We've also proved that it's not shorted to ground. We've not proved that the solenoid itself is operable, that it works, but circuit-wise, we're now down to replace the ABS module. And before I called the ABS module, I did a few extra tests. So let me show you the extra test that I did, and I still got this thing wrong. Okay, so the next test that I did is I wanted to see if the solenoid is actually functioning. So I took my 2.5 amp test lot, and it is run into one connector here, and then the output still run to battery ground. So if I just kind of touch this to battery ground, I'm sure you can probably hear that. Confirmed the solenoid works. That's another strike for the ABS module. Okay, so I went a little bit further. So next test, I plugged the ABS back up and back pinned into the solenoid wires there, pins 3 and 4. Key's off right now, so on the scope you see that we're at 0 volts. Okay, and let's turn the key on. I'll let you guys watch the scope. I guess it'd help if I had the key. So, key on. What do we have? 11 volts. It's a little low, considering that I've got my maintainer on at 13.4. So, slightly low voltage coming out of the ABS module. Is that a definite? I don't know. Here's kind of where I've run into a roadblock with this thing as far as testing wise that I think I should be able to do. Nowhere in the service information have I found a way to control this circuit. And even in the scan tool, I looked in 3 different scan tools, a launch, an Autel, and the Snap-on. None of them show a way to bidirectionally control this solenoid. So if we go over to functional test, this is all we have. I've tried going through some of them to see if any of them would actuate it. I didn't really see anything. So I then tried to just make it do it. Like, no luck. I can't figure out a way to make the thing try to work. Is that a fault in the module? Possibly. Since it's set in the code, will it even attempt to try to control it? I don't know. I'm getting voltage out of it. So I was basically kind of stuck right here. Like, everything points to being a bad ABS module. Time to verify our powers and grounds to the ABS module. Okay, so on our wiring diagram here, we've got our ignition right here going down to pin 9. Our ground is pin 1. And then on this other page over here, we've got our other 2 battery feeds, a 50 amp and a 40 amp, hot at all times. So I have those highlighted, and they go to pin 16 and pin 47. So if we go by our connector diagram, I also looked at some other things too and found that pin 1 is basically a big terminal by itself. So Let's see if I can get you down here to see. You can see how these two big ones have terminals in it. The one down here is by itself. So that is my pin 1 right there. That's my ground. So that's going to be the first one I check. It's the easiest, kind of. So what I've got is battery positive hooked up to my meter, which also has my 10 amp test light bulb in it. And then this right here, I'm just going to pin in there. And just so you can see what it does when I go good battery ground, lights up 13 volts. Okay, so let me get y'all situated here so you can see. Okay, there you go, you can see that. And if we just get this down in here into terminal 1, there we go, 13 volts. Ground is good. So for everything else, I can actually go straight to my ground here in terminal 1 and check the rest of everything else. Okay, so our terminals then say these two up here, the two big ones here, are our big amp ones from the battery. So if we get our ground side into terminal 1 here, we can go to each one of these. So 12 volts, that's about a volt drop. And 12 volts, that's about a volt drop. So it's not terrible, considering this has got to go through no telling how many connectors, the fuses, things like that. A volt at 10 amps is, it's okay, I think, on this. It's still, if I had like an issue, it would drop more than a volt, I would think. So it's not really enough for me to condemn it. The ignition, would that have anything to do with it? Maybe. It's going to take a smaller bulb though, because by the diagram that goes through a 7.5 amp fuse. So I'm going to use my 2.5 amp bulb for that. Okay, so same thing. I got my 2.5 amp bulb here, and we are in terminal 9 and terminal 1, which is ground and ignition. So let me turn the key on. There we go, we got 12 volts there. So powers, grounds, everything seems pretty good. I know a lot of you probably think the 1 volt drop is probably enough to worry about. Not me. I've done this enough. I'm not worried about it because I know what I'm going through. I'm going through these little terminals. If I can get one of these out. I'm going through these little tiny terminal leads and stuff like that. I'm going through several connectors. It's just a lot of stuff. You add that into the stuff that's in the factory harness, I'm not concerned with it. I would think if there was an issue, I'd be dropping 6, 7, 8 volts, something like that. With that much of a load on it, I'd be dropping way more than just, a volt. A good rule of thumb is about a tenth of a volt per connection. So if you got a fuse, that's technically 2 connections. There's several connections just in my leads. No telling how many connections between the battery and the fuse box, plus all the ground connections. There's a whole lot of stuff in that to take into account. So at 12 volts, that's a good circuit. Pretty confident in that. So we've determined we got a good solenoid. We've determined that we've got good powers and grounds. We've determined we don't have any kind of short to ground. I mean, I feel like I went above and beyond what the OEM service information has given for this. They give you a simple, does it ohm out? Is it shorted to ground? Is the wires physically good, like from one end to the other end? I've done all that. Still leads me to the ABS module. I had the customer order an ABS module. It was a used one. It was a used one, but still, I put it in there. Went through the 0-point calibration and everything. Guess what? I still have this same exact code. What's the odds of having 2 ABS modules with the exact same code? If there was a bulletin on this issue, maybe. I would possibly say, sure, we've probably got a bad ABS module. Let's get another one and go for number 3. I didn't find any bulletins for this. So it made me kind of rethink, what have I missed? So take a minute, think about it, hit the pause button, think about it. What have I missed? Am I right? Is the ABS module bad? No, I'm not. I'm definitely wrong. The ABS module is good. Well, I don't know that it's good. I've got an issue. And then leave it down in the comments, like, what you think I've missed testing wise. You got that? You got it in the comments? Okay, now let's go over what I've done wrong, what I've missed, and how we're going to go about fixing this truck. All right, so I got the ABS unplugged. I've got the solenoid connector unplugged. And this is where service information kind of screwed me. For one, there's no description really of how the circuit operates. You know, no way of recreating this issue, like as far as bidirectionally controlling it or being able to force this solenoid on to check output from the ABS module. If I could have checked the output from the module in a way that I knew is a way that you're supposed to be able to test it, I could have ruled out some stuff. But I couldn't. I had questions. Even when I called this module, I questioned it. I was like, it just doesn't make sense. And I should have went with my gut, because my gut was telling me I need to figure out some way of verifying this, and I couldn't. I just couldn't think of a way to do it. But if they would have given me some more information on how to test it, more things to test, things I should be looking for, you know, how does this thing circuit check itself? How does it know that the solenoid's shorted or open? You know, I feel like they could have just given me more information. What are these other wires? I actually had to force this thing to set codes for these other wires. And that's kind of what led me to figuring out what the issue is with it. It's basically 2 micro switches, one that gets pulled high and one that gets pulled low whenever, or let's see, is it one high and one open? I can't remember. I can't remember if it's like an open and closed and they've got to swap. I think that's how it was. It's an open and a closed, and then you press a brake and they swap to closed and open. I think that's how it was. But anyways, I had to force a code to set for that so I could even know what these things are. And it kind of led me into thinking, well, what if the switches inside is shorted to like into the solenoid somehow. So I ohm checked everything down there. Everything is perfect. Nothing is has any resistance to anything other than I think it's one closed circuit and then the one open circuit, and then when you press the brake it switches to closed and the other side goes to open. I checked all that, everything was good, and then of course I had my 1.5 ohm solenoid. Then it's like kind of a dawn on me, like, what are the odds of this harness from here? It just goes up, over, down, into the big harness that comes up to the ABS module. Like, this thing is like down here and then up. It's like a 2-foot long harness at most. What's the odds of it being shorted together internally somehow to some other wire? That's where I found my issue. So we got our handy dandy ohm meter here. I know y'all don't really see me use this thing a lot because I really don't use it a whole lot, but let's go into pin 4. Okay, and if we're got to shorten the harness, we can just go from pin to pin and see if we have any opens or anything. Let's see. So yeah, that's pin 4. That's an empty hole. So that one's nothing, 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 and nothing. So let's go over to our pin 3 here. Do the same thing. Check all of our. So nothing, nothing. And then look at that. So them two, pin 1, and pin 4 is shorted together somewhere. If I can get my terminal lead in here. 3 ohms. Put it over on the buzzer. Yep, there we go. Oh man, eat that humble pie up. There you go, eat it up. So I've got 2 wires shorted together. One of these switch wires and one of my solenoid wires are shorted together in a 2-foot section of harness. What is the odds of that? Well, let's see if we can find it. So we flip this back over on our beeper. Let's just do some wiggle test. Oh. I looked this harness. I looked at it. Whenever I called the ABS, or before I called the ABS module, I looked at it. I didn't really see anything wrong with it. I just didn't look good enough. With my flashlight, I don't know if you can see right in there, the harness is a little bit frayed. Some kind of little bit of marks on it. Let's see if I can get you in there, see this a little better. There you go. We've got some rodent damage down there. Kind of out of the way down there where I really didn't see it. I don't know if that's where my wire is broke. I looked at it with a mirror. It doesn't look like I've got a broke wire down there, but apparently I've got those two wires that ran close together, and at some point when this thing got chewed on, those wires, there's probably just a little fray spot where a couple wires are just, bent out and they're just touching each other. So I'm going to take the harness loose and find my damaged wire. Got the whole sheathing off, and as you know, it was sitting in there like that. And on the back side of it, yeah. Oh man. And now that I got it off, let's see. There you go. Hopefully you can make that out down there. So, yep, I missed it. And I'm gonna, if the customer can't send this ABS module back, I guess I'm buying an ABS module. So, we'll settle up with him when he finds out if he can send it back or not. I don't know if he'll be able to or not. If not, I mean, it's no big deal. In the end, it is my fault. Even though I followed the service testing, exactly how it's supposed to be. I'm the professional. I'm supposed to be the one, think out of the box and, confirm things. Even though I thought I'd confirmed it, I missed something kind of that you don't hardly ever see, but it should always be in your mind that is a possibility that two wires be shorted in the harness to something or together. I guess the OEM just didn't think it was possible, or they should have put it in the testing. So, it is what it is. We all make mistakes. If you've not made any mistakes, you've not been doing this very long. And if you have, then you didn't know you made a mistake because they didn't bring you the car back. Luckily, I try to do a very good job of verifying everything after repairs, to make sure everything is fixed that I was told to fix. And this thing, I found it, it was pretty easy because it was a hard fault no matter what. But anyways, I'll get this put together or repaired down in there, get all those wires fixed, put this back together, and then we'll see if the ABS module is good or bad. I think it's going to be good. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. So let me get it all together, and I'll show you guys the post scan whenever I get finished. All right, I got the wires out there fixed up, soldered back up, heat shrinked, sealed. Still got to tape the harness back up, put the loom back on it, and kind of fix it back out there where it looks factory. As you can see, there's our code. Let's see if it's going to clear. Like I said, this was a hard fault. It would come back immediately. There we go. No codes. I'll finish putting it together, test drive this sucker, make sure everything's a-okay with it. But what do you guys think? Was it my fault that I misdiagnosed it? Or was it Toyota's fault for not giving us more information? I think both. Both their faults. I think OEMs should give a lot more information as far as circuit description on operation, like how the circuit functions, under what conditions does it function. Kia Hyundai is really good about giving waveforms for things. Give some waveforms of some stuff like sensors and whatnot. I know this thing's just a solenoid, and you would think, you know, it's a 2-wire solenoid circuit. How hard could this have been to diagnose? It should have been easy, yes. Just an oversight. I mean, I know a lot of you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have. I've only been doing mechanic technician work on cars for basically right at 5 years. I started in a dealership 2017. It's 22 right now. My first day was December 19th, 2017. So 5 years, like right at 5 years. So a lot of you guys are, you know, a lot more seasoned than I am at this stuff. But at the same time, these OEMs, they could be doing a lot more as far as giving correct information. I mean, this thing, if this would have happened and went to a Toyota dealership, you know, they'd done the exact same thing. They put an ABS module in it because that's what their procedure says do. So what do you do? I mean, somebody needs to be held accountable for it. At the end of the day, yeah, I drop the ball. I'll make it right with the customer. I'll you know, pay reimbursing for that ABS module if we can't get it sent back. So, and if we can't, a lot of you guys are going to wonder how to bill in a situation like this. Well, what I'm going to do is, if we can't send the module back and him get reimbursed for it or a refund, I'll basically bill this out as if I diagnosed it correctly the first time. I get my diagnostic fee, and then I get my wire repair fee, and that would be my total. What I would end up doing if I have to eat the module is whatever he paid for the module, I'm just going to discount the ticket that amount. I don't know how much he paid for it. I know how much that thing is brand new, so I might be owing him money. I don't know yet. I gotta call him and ask him how much he paid for it and whatnot. But me and him will cross that bridge when we get there. He'll just be glad to get his truck back fixed. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If not, sorry. You know, it is what it is. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So you just gotta own up to them and fix it. But like always, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, the subscribe button, share it with your friends or colleagues or anybody like that. And we'll see you guys later on the next one.